So thank you everyone for joining this session. We're really excited to see you here to talk to Mr. Akash Patel about some of his work he's doing all over the world around global citizenship education and the SDGs. He is a second language teacher based in Texas, but has a lot of experience doing teacher training all around the world and working with his foundation, the Happy World Foundation. So we're expected to be joined by a few more people, but I also don't want to waste any time in getting started. Akash Patel, please, I'll hand this over to you, and you have a really amazing group here. Please, everyone, post your questions in the chat. It's going to be interactive today. You get a lot of individual time with an expert. So we're really, really excited for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you to the Global Schools Network and, of course, the Sustainable Development Solutions Network for having me here today. I'm very excited to be sharing with such an incredible group of passionate young folks and also educators. I'm assuming some of you are educators or aspiring educators. So I'm going to start off simply by putting in a link because I want you to take a look at the SDGs. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, but just so you, while I'm speaking, while I'm sharing some of the images I shared today, I want you to think about what Sustainable Development Goal do you think this aligns with? So that's why I'm going to post a link from Global Goals. So this is an organization that also works around promoting the global goals. So just go to that link, keep that open on a second tab, or just go to the United Nations website. Go anywhere where you can find the Sustainable Development Goals. The reason why I want you to pull those up, because I want you to think about how do any of these 17 goals align with what Akash is sharing today. So here we go. I'm going to share my presentation. Let's see. I had it up just a second ago. All right, there we go. And we'll get started right away. So please make sure if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to share them in the chat. I want this presentation to be extremely interactive. So this is our website, also another great resource that you can open. But right now, I would really, really want you to open the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in some way, sort, or form on a second tab. So you can think about, hey, I think what Akash just showed, this ties into uh, this goal, or I think this ties into the other goal. So in 2009, I came to the United States. I'm 30 years old now. I came to the United States when I was 18 years old with my twin brother. And both of us, the stereotype for folks who are from India is that you either can be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, or a disgrace to the family. So it's just horrifying that, hey, that's the kind of stereotypes we have for folks from my country. So I decided to go in for nuclear engineering at Iowa State University. Now, we got a full ride scholarship to study at Iowa State in Ames, Iowa. And both of us went to Iowa. Culture shock from India to the cornfields of Iowa in the middle of nowhere. And at the end of first semester, we were extremely bright in physics and math and sciences. But the chair of the American Nuclear Society, who was a visiting professor at my university, her name was Dr. Carolyn Heising. She gave me an internship my first semester while I was there, and she took me to India and China to study thorium-based fuel cycles. And when I came back from that trip, she said, Akash, you're so incredibly gifted in nuclear physics or what you're doing with me, but I think you have a bigger gift. I think you have a gift in with people. So you're a people person. You've got to explore your leadership skills. And that stuck in my mind. And I was like, I've got to run away from here. So my brother and I, both who were big people persons hosting large scale events on campus, we got featured on the front page of the local newspaper, not for our contributions to nuclear engineering, but for our contributions to the community. So we run off, and our parents are extremely angry that we would leave a full ride scholarship, buy a car on Craigslist, and run away to the state of Oklahoma, where we had some of our family members who lived there. Now, state of Oklahoma, stereotypical, you see a lot of cowboys and lots of Native American tribes. So I end up going there and I'm lost and I don't know what I want to do with my life. So I go and pursue my associates in liberal studies and then get my degree in teaching. I got my degree in teaching from a small public university in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma called the University of Science and Arts of Oklahoma. 1,000 graduating students, a class of 200 graduating, 1,000 students on the entire campus. So when I graduated, they put me to student teach or start teaching in small communities of 100 people where folks had never seen someone like me. And they're like, who is this guy? So you can see, I went into my rural communities, I would end up dressing up like a cowboy, dressed up in my cowboy hats, my cowboy boots, and everybody in the community thought I was a Mexican cowboy because I spoke Spanish. So it was just hilarious that I'm in a small community teaching fourth grade in a primary school. And then the students would ask me, so Mr. Patel, where are you from? And I would tell them I'm from India. A lot of students did not know where India was on a map. So that's when I realized that my students were lacking in on global citizenship or global experiences. There was a big gap in rural communities. What do I do to bridge that gap? What can I do to help my students from small rural communities of America that have never traveled outside, let's say even their state, to get to learn about Kenya, to get to learn about Australia or Zambia or Argentina or Chile? So I started inviting my own friends because I had the privilege of having traveled to over 50 countries when I started student teaching in 2014. I was like, why don't I invite my friends? And then I started sharing my own experiences. Why would I do this? Because A, people had stereotypes. Right now, as I look into this beautiful room of diverse people from all over the globe, I could have stereotypes of somebody, of one of you, just because I read something or I heard something when I was a child. Sometimes these stereotypes may be good, but sometimes, most of the times, likely these stereotypes lead to bigotry and prejudice. Because when you hold really poor stereotypes of or misconceptions of other people's cultures at a young age that has been taught by the community that you live in, it could lead to bigotry and prejudice. And that's why you guys and I and all of us together collectively, our duty as educators is to not just teach the students the math and the science and the reading as required by the law, but it is to educate our students to be the global citizens of tomorrow, to educate them about the planet that they live in so that they can dispel their stereotypes and treat everyone the same, which is a powerful way of promoting peace and tolerance in the hearts and minds of our children, to foster world peace and collaboration. So I started teaching. I would teach them my experiences of working with elephants, where I've even taken now over the years students to the border of India and Nepal, to the Chitwan National Park in Nepal, where I have some of my family friends who work with elephants. And I took them down there to make elephant poo-poo paper. You heard that right. One elephant gives you about 200 sheets of paper per day. It doesn't stink, it doesn't smell, it's biodegradable. And I got to teach them about the DNA mapping of elephants, something scientists are using in Africa to study poaching patterns. Because elephants are being poached in different parts of Africa, and then the tusks being smuggled into countries like China, Vietnam, other parts of the globe. They're taking DNA samples from this and mapping the DNA. So through teaching them about elephants, I got to teach them about science, which is right here, the DNA mapping of elephants to protect life on Earth, also to teach them about the culture of the countries where Asian elephants are found, like Thailand or Laos or India or Sri Lanka or Nepal. So I'm helping bridge a gap, which is in global experiences, but at the same time, teaching them STEM lessons. So here we've got tens of students in Oklahoma City with their DNA necklaces going around telling everybody, I can extract the DNA of elephants, or I can extract the DNA of rhinos, and now I can help protect rhinos from extinction. Or I got to teach them about sea turtles. Now, yes, Akash is privileged to have traveled to other countries that he can teach these things because I have lived these experiences. But what about educators who have not traveled, who do not have experiences from Africa or Asia, from Latin America? How do we help these educators? So while I was out there, I knew I had something that I had to do. As one person, I can only reach so many students. But what if I bring in an Amanda, a Fikayo, an Emmanuel, a Kanan, and what if I bring in these four individuals from four different parts of the globe and just ask them to video call my students for 20 minutes? And my students would be out there with a map, and they would be like, Fikayo, are you north or south of the equator? What currency do they use in your country? Do you drink cow milk or water buffalo milk? Do you have a monarch, a dictator, a king? I mean, like, do you have a monarch, a dictator, or a president, or a prime minister? So students would have to ask questions to solve the mystery of where Fikayo is from. A very exciting 20-minute game that would lead them into a conversation about now, hey, Fikayo, so what do you do for a living? What is that drives you on a daily basis? What are you passionate about? And there's Fikayo tells everybody, I'm a doctor by profession, or I'm an engineer, or I'm an architect, or I'm a builder. I build homes for a living. So, hey, here students are learning about different careers. They're not just learning about Fikayo's country, her background, her traditions. At the same time, they're being exposed to careers so that someday when they grow up, even though they're from very poor communities of the United States, they could be like, when I grow up, I want to go to college. And when I go to college, I'm going to have a good job and I want to travel to Fikayo's country, even though I don't know where Fikayo is from. So Fikayo, you might just unmuting yourself and telling me where you're from.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Nigeria. I
Awesome.
reside in Lagos, Nigeria.
Very cool. Very cool. So yes, the kid's going to be like, I want to go to Nigeria. And, I want to go explore the Nigerian culture or try Nigerian food because someday I can grow up and travel to that place. So it is inspiring empathy. It's inspiring global citizenship. It is inspiring drive in our kids that someday when I grow up, I am going to have the resources. I'm going to have the ambition, the goals to travel to a country like Fikayo's. Just because I met her in Mr. Patel's class. So that's when we created a database because I started by connecting my students. I called an Emmanuel, I called a Fikayo, I called a Kanan, I called an Amanda in my classroom. And kids were all like, whoa, we just met Amanda from Australia. And that was so cool. We learned a little bit about the Aboriginal people or the native people of Australia. Or we just met Kanan and he happens to be from South Africa. And we learned about the apartheid in South Africa. So the kids that now lived in a very tiny community are exposed to people from so many countries, are traveling across the four walls of their classroom. That's when I realized that I had to turn this into some sort of a database. So I called 100, maybe 200 people in my classroom from different countries. I was like, what if I turned this into a database where teachers from anywhere around the globe can be like, hey, I too want to connect my students to a Noemi from Argentina. I too want to connect my students to somebody from Germany or from France or from Equatorial Guinea, the only country in Africa that was colonized by Spain and that speaks Spanish. So how do we do that? We created a database. And as you can see, here we go. We have students now connecting with an orphanage in India, to the right, connecting with 3 leaders from Brazil, Argentina, and Chile. We have students connecting with folks from Lesotho and Swaziland, as you can see to the left. These are tiny monarchies in the middle of South Africa. They're their own countries. And it was so cool. The students were surprised. They were like, what do y'all drink? And they said, we drink milk from water buffaloes. And in the United States, we don't have water buffaloes. So they were like, ew, how could you drink milk from buffaloes? Because in the United States, they would associate a buffalo with a bison. And you don't drink milk from bisons. So it was really a neat cultural differences that students would get to talk about. Or to the right, you can see the individuals from Brazil, from Argentina and Chile talking to the students about their countries, taking them on a virtual field trip. Here we've got students from an orphanage in India, as you can see. So why would we connect? Why do we have 1,200 volunteers from 150 countries? And these are volunteers, which means they could connect with your classroom for free during their free time. Also, any of you listening here today, if you feel like, oh, I've got 20 minutes of spare time and I want to connect with a classroom in Canada or Brazil or Argentina or Chile, we would love to have you. We would love to have you as a volunteer for 20, 30 minutes of your free time on a day when you are free. So we work around the free schedules of our volunteers. Empathy, because a lot of our students, doesn't matter whether they're in the United States or in other countries, they lack empathy sometimes. Of course, if some of our students live in extreme poverty, they know what it's like to be poor. But if they have slightly more, they still are living better off in some communities than war-torn conflict zones around the globe. So when I connect my students to people from war-torn nations or from conflict zones, They learn to empathize, even though they're from the poorest of the poor schools in the United States. They know that their suffering is nothing compared to the suffering of children in Yemen or of children in Palestine and Israel, or what's going on down there. So the children know that their suffering is nothing compared to what's happening in other parts of the globe. And that's a powerful thing to do as an educator. When you inspire empathy, you see a transformative power of empathy in the students and their behavior. As a first year teacher, when I started teaching, I remember my greatest challenge was managing students. The students can be crazy. Sometimes they will give you a very hard time. So I'm like, how do I control some of these students? They're giving me a very hard time. I've tried everything. And then I connect them with students that had to walk for 30 minutes to make it to school in Bangladesh, just so they could video call with my students. And the hardest of my hardest student asked me, Mr. Patel, why did that child have to walk for 30 minutes to make it to school? I was like, because they don't have resources and they live in a remote part of Bangladesh where they have to walk for 30 minutes. And then they asked me a question, Mr. Patel, why don't they have anything on their walls? And why are they only using one room with one computer? Because that's all they've got. They're not as blessed as in the United States, where every classroom's got a computer, every classroom's got a projector. So that's what we've got to show to our kids, because it ultimately leads to action civics, kids turning that into action. So here we've got scholars listening to an author from Alaska. She's talking about the Iditarod, which is a race of sled dogs. So our database also has lots of authors from around the globe that will come and talk to your students live and for free. That's an actor from the Nepalese film industry. That's a classroom in New Zealand talking to a classroom here in the United States, and they're mystery hanging out. Or when I found my students making fun of diseases like Ebola just because they thought the word was so funny. And I was like, that's not funny. That word's not funny. That's a grave disease that has killed hundreds of people. But young children, sometimes they don't know. They don't understand. They don't understand. They just watch something on TV and they find the word funny. So I was like, let me bring in an entrepreneur from Liberia, an entrepreneur from Brazil that could talk about the Zika virus and that could talk about the Ebola virus and the toll it has taken on the people in their communities. So all these kids are glued out there. They were like, wow, we didn't know that there were hundreds of thousands of people in the streets dying and nobody wanted to touch them. How horrifying. And the work that these social entrepreneurs are doing to lift the lives of these people in other countries. Or we have bilingual authors that speak Spanish and English or French and English that can talk to your students. I want to also share this story. The story is of the CEO of Community Recycling, a national organization in the United States that recycles stuff and sends it to 50 different countries, like gently used clothing or shoes. So my students were amazed. They were like, wow, that's so cool. But they're like, what can I do for you? I live in a small inner city community and I don't think I've got all that money to help people in Sudan or in Philippines or other countries. So the guy's like, don't worry, I'm going to send you a box with shipping paid for. So he sends us a box with shipping paid for, and he asks the students to put in their gently used clothes or shoes and send it back to them. And my students put in some of their gently used clothes and shoes in there. A month later, the guy calls us back and he shows us the bag and he's like, Bella, look at your shoes. They're going to Sudan. Or hey, Alexis, look at your clothes. We're sending them to kids in the Philippines. So for the first time, kids even at a poor school in the United States had realized that you don't have to be rich to make a difference in someone's life, that we can all make a difference. You don't have to be rich. You don't have to be wealthy. You don't have to have thousands of dollars to make a difference in someone's life. Speaking of climate change, I was following a reporter on Twitter who was covering the Kiribati Islands, small atolls in the Pacific Ocean that are being flooded because of global climate change. So the first thing we wanted to do is we wanted to call the kids down there and see like, hey, can we talk to the kids down here? And the kids, the first thing they asked, hey guys, what do y'all do for recess? And the guys in the Kiribati Islands are like, we just go outside and jump in the water because our school's right across from the beach. And then the child says, but sadly, very soon they're saying our school is going to be underwater and my parents are saying we're going to have to move to other islands like Fiji. So my kids, for the first time, they learned the word refugee. And they were like, Mr. Patel, wow, these kids don't have much themselves. But the next morning I saw a reflection where a child drew his bed and he said, Mr. Patel, I would love to share my bed with one of these kids in the Kiribati Islands. That is empathy in action. So as long as I can spark that kind of empathy at a young age, our global goals are taken care of in the future, or we have the global citizens of tomorrow. We are educating them about the goals and letting them be inspired to learn about how to take action for the global goals. Taking action for the global goals cannot start without first educating the kids about the global goals, or educating the students about the planet that we live in. If they have no knowledge of the planet that we live in, how can you even imagine or expect them to take action for some of what's happening around the planet that we live in? So there's a visitor from the Kingdom of Bhutan, a monarchy, now a constitutional monarchy, the last country on earth to introduce television, and also the only country on earth that measures GDH, or gross domestic happiness of their citizens. The king of Bhutan was the person to introduce the World Happiness Day at the United Nations. So really cool facts that the kids got really excited. I want to go to this country. I want to see how happy I am. I want to see how they measure the happiness of our people. So that's when we were inspired to introduce a new program called Exploring Languages. It's offered to schools anywhere around the globe, as long as they have a steady internet connection. We have folks that speak over 100 languages that can introduce your students to their languages, that can introduce your students to their cultures, their countries, and their communities that they live in. And then we've got the field trip program that became a hit during the pandemic because a lot of schools were closed. They were mostly online. So teachers are like, wow, even before the pandemic, we didn't have money to take kids on a field trip. Now, because of the pandemic, our kids are depressed. They're in the, like, they can't go outside. But hey, we've got virtual, we've got technology, and there we've got firefighters or cops, or we've got a tour guide in a rural community of Colombia showing them around the beautiful art of her community. Or we've got somebody at the Taj Mahal that will walk around the Taj Mahal, somebody who's at down there in Antarctica with penguins. So we got a scientist walking around with penguins, and the kids are like, whoa, we're going to be taking selfies with penguins. So how cool of an opportunity would that be for them to not just learn about climate change, but also to get a tour of life on Earth, which is like penguins or polar bears or the whales that live out in Antarctica. So this is also about relationship building. When our students connect with other students, like say from India, or from UK, from other countries, you see right here, before our students went on an exam before the pandemic, here they were, the kids out in the UK and in the United States. They're like, hey, our friends in the UK and the United States, we just wanted to wish you good luck with your exams. So these are lifelong relationships that our students will develop with kids, for example, kids in Dallas, Texas, with kids in San Luis Potosi, Mexico, or here we've got folks from the Middle East, from Lebanon, from Saudi Arabia, and the two young ladies who are twins from Zaragoza, España, or this is a classroom in Medellin, Colombia, connecting with a classroom in Dallas, Texas. We also introduced a program in person. Now, this program may not be available to you guys, but this may inspire you to do something similar in your communities. Our second program that's quite popular now that we have started reopening the schools is Multicultural Days, where we introduce local international students from local universities into the schools. And as you can see, that's my twin brother. That's not me. That's my twin brother. His name is Happy. So Happy's right there with some of the students and our friends from Afghanistan, from Brazil. So that's when they spend a whole day in a rural school or an urban school. We offer this program only to schools in Texas and Oklahoma because that's where our office is located. But the virtual program is open to schools all across the globe because we have volunteers from 1,200 volunteers from 150 countries that can really, at the tap of like a finger, can connect with a classroom in Kenya or connect with a classroom in Australia or in India. But this program we offer in person so that these folks can go out and share their cultures or their games or their knowledge. And because most of them are career-bound university students that go and talk to the students about what careers they're in, or play some American games with them, or share some of their games from their countries with the students, or dance at a multicultural assembly. So that created the School to College Pipeline Initiative. A lot of us in the United States, we usually associate inner city kids with something so negative that we think they're going to go from school straight to prison. But we are changing the narrative by connecting these very same inner city students with mentors of color from all walks of life, so that the students have opportunities to connect with these mentors, to get inspired from these mentors and continue pursuing their education through high school and then through university. We have a Global Ambassadors Leadership Institute at the foundation. That's a scholarship-based program that started by just recruiting high school and university students. And we train them to be global ambassadors. We connect them with diplomats from the State Department, from the United Nations. The end product is for them to create projects aligned with the UN SDGs. So if any of you are interested, now this program is open to everybody, regardless of their age group. We select 18 through 20 global ambassadors. They meet over 8 Saturdays in a calendar year. It's only for 3 hours in the morning, 2 hours of which is they are connecting with diplomats and global citizens from around the globe, and 1 hour of which they spend on their projects collaborating with their friends from other countries. So the program is now open to people all over the globe. We offer professional development, which is what I'm doing right now, telling teachers about the programs that we offer, collaborating with them. We've trained over 10,000 teachers in the United States. And just last year during the pandemic, I had an opportunity to speak to over 30,000 teachers at an international congress in Argentina. So we have thousands of teachers that connect on a daily basis. So here you watch, this is the impact of our work. We have classrooms in Virginia, Arizona, Wyoming, Arkansas, Alaska, Oklahoma, Missouri, connecting with people from other countries. So here's university classrooms, or we've got classrooms from K through 12, as young as pre-K students, dressed up in their flamenco outfits, connecting with a person from Spain. Or so we can really implement these global citizenship programs in any classroom with students of any age group. And we also give back to other countries. So we have American, Canadian volunteers, or Australian, English volunteers from the United Kingdom connecting with students from other countries, teaching them English. So for all the work that we have done, we've received several accolades we've also been celebrated back when I created the nonprofit. It used to be called World Experiences Foundation. So also featured on the United Nations for the work we do. We've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for study abroad scholarships for at-risk youth, sent hundreds of students on study abroad trips in meaningful service learning in countries from Costa Rica, Brazil, Uganda. So we've sent students all over the globe with our scholarships. We also have a mini grant and scholarship program that each year raises over $15,000 to give out to social entrepreneurs in any country around the globe. So if any of you are interested in applying for some sort of a mini grant, like $500 of a grant, you can go to our website and apply for a grant. The last story, and then we'll open it up to discussion. So I want to make sure I'm good on time. Yes, we're good on time. So I'm a Spanish teacher, even though I'm from India. And in India, we don't speak Spanish. So we don't even speak French or Spanish. We were an English colony, so we spoke English, and we speak 22 official languages, over 400 languages, and maybe over 1,200 dialects in India. So it's a very diverse and a big country. So how did I end up becoming a Spanish teacher, even though my degree is to teach math to high school students? I never taught high school math. So in 2011, while I was a sophomore in college, which means I was a second year of college, a lot of college students, when it's spring break in the United States, they want to go to Miami, they want to go to South Padre Islands, they want to go to Cancun, to Dominican Republic, to a beach destination, to just have fun because they're tired of school. So I too wanted to do something similar like my twin was, but I was like, I want to go to another country and make a difference in the lives of people. And my Hispanic friends started making fun of me. They're like, Akash, how are you going to go to a Spanish-speaking country and get a job or an internship? You don't speak a word of Spanish. I was like, you know what? I'm going to use Google Translate. That's the worst feature you can ever use. So I write a letter up using Google Translate to translate it from English to Spanish, and I send it to 50 random people on Facebook. And these 50 random people on Facebook, they looked like they were professionals. They work for professional organizations. And I thought they would send me a response and be like, I'll give you an internship. Nobody responded except for one person, the chief of staff of the First Lady of the Dominican Republic. He writes back to me, Mr. Patel, do you realize the message that you sent me is grammatically incorrect? So I sent him in Spanish, J-A-J-A-J-A, which means ha, 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 ha. Of course, I know it's grammatically incorrect because I use Google Translate. The guy starts laughing and he's like, I love your energy. I want you to come down to my country and teach them about your experiences. So teach children in our country in the First Lady's program about your experiences working with elephants and sea turtles. So in January 2011, I embarked on that trip, 1 month internship with the First Lady of the Dominican Republic. I didn't meet her. I never met her because her office is so big, but I ended up working with the kids. And the last day I was there, the kids threw me a farewell at the National Music Conservatory that was telecast live on the First Lady's program. And guess what? I come back to the United States and I fell in love with Hispanic culture. And I was like, I'm going to teach myself Spanish. I did teach myself Spanish. I graduated from college with a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in education, even though my degree was in math, to teach math. Then I took the Spanish exam and I passed the exam. So now I can teach Spanish in Texas and Oklahoma. And 7 years after that internship, in March of 2018, I became a top 50 finalist for the 1 million Global Teacher Prize out of 30,000 teachers worldwide. And they flew me to Dubai to meet heads of states, to meet Bollywood and Hollywood actors and actresses at the Oscars for teachers. So I'm out there and there's all of these cool people in Dubai, and I'm under a palm tree sipping on a margarita, and I run into two Secret Service agents. And these Secret Service agents are speaking the funky Spanish, like, hola, hola, mi amigo, ¿cómo tú estás? ¿Qué lo que? And I'm like, this Spanish is only spoken in the Caribbean, either Puerto Rico or in the Dominican Republic. So I turn around the guys and I'm like, hey, I learned my Spanish in your country, the Dominican Republic. And they're like, what? This guy doesn't look Dominican. How do you speak Spanish so well? So I showed them pictures from 7 years ago. And they told me, you know what? The office that you worked for, that lady is right here, and now she's the vice president of the Dominican Republic. Her husband finished his 2 terms of president, so she's no longer the first lady, but she ran for office and she's the vice president. So the next morning, in front of 5,000 people, the lady calls me and she's like, guys, look at this dude. He's from India and he teaches Spanish in Dallas, Texas. And he didn't speak a word of it when he came to my country in 2011. But he speaks impressive Spanish and he teaches it to vulnerable communities. And now he's a finalist for the Global Teacher Prize. I was really touched with her last statement in her Instagram post, which said, Él es un orgullo del mundo que se formó en nuestro país, which means it said he's a pride of the world that was formed in our country, in the Dominican Republic. So ever since, we have kept in touch with her. But sadly, 3 weeks after I came back from that trip to Dubai, as a finalist of the Global Teacher Prize, my twin brother, Happy Patel, passed away in a plane crash. He passed away in a plane crash. He was 26 years old in Arizona. So I was devastated. I didn't know what to do after my twin brother passed with all of that grief. So the next few days went by. I passed through the memorial, the funeral for my brother. And then I started thinking, hey, I've spent at least 3-4 years of my life before my brother passed away with a foundation called the Global Experiences Foundation, where we were giving Americans opportunities to experience the globe. But what is the ultimate goal of global experiences? That we all live in a happy world free of bigotry and prejudice. So I got together with my friends and we renamed the nonprofit and we created a nonprofit organization, an entity called Happy World Foundation with my brother's happy glasses. So my brother would wear glasses and they had no lenses in them. So to the left, if you see, he would always pop the lenses out because he thought that was cool. And I always thought that was lame, but that's how, siblings are. They'll think that one's cool and the other one's literally lame. So we created the nonprofit and we put my brother's glasses on it. And ever since, while I was gone to take care of my brother's funeral, kids at a Title I school, a really poor school, they fundraised $1,500 to give to my family for the funeral. And we didn't want to take it. So we gave it back to the kids and they created the Happy Meals program for the homeless. So since my brother's passing, we've distributed over 20,000 Happy Meals to the homeless in inner cities across Texas and Oklahoma. We also created the nonprofit clinic. Since 2018, we've helped over 53 organizations across the United States pro bono, which means without charging them a dime, create their 501c3s or create their nonprofit organizations to help them get the tax exempt status with IRS at no cost. So this nonprofit clinic's still open. And then, of course, I got invited to discuss global education with President Bill Clinton. I also was invited by the president of Colombia, the former president of Colombia, who's a Nobel Peace Prize winner, Juan Manuel Santos. And he and I went to Dubai after my brother passed away a year later. And we sat in on a panel discussing how education can lead to peace. the kinds of education that we impart through the Happy World Foundation, which is multicultural and multilingual education. How can that lead to peace? To the left is the president of Costa Rica, Laura Chinchilla. To the right is my dear friend from Uganda, a CNN hero, Sister Rosemary, who and I work together, where she works with former child soldiers that were taken by Joseph Kony, a really bad guy in Uganda, for those who know about the Ugandan civil war, where he took all these kids and he turned them into child soldiers. And the nun went and rescued these kids. And she works in she has an incredible story. And I love to take students on trips to her school in Uganda. That's my only professor of color from Chickasha, Oklahoma, from the small community in Oklahoma, where all my professors were mostly white, and they were great professors. But this lady, she was Hispanic, and she really inspired me to learn Spanish. And also she inspired me to create nonprofit initiatives, because she herself had created nonprofits of her own, where she collected thousands of toys for Syrian children in refugee camps, or she collected hundreds of thousands of books to give away to kids in need during Christmas. So that's our governor, or former governor of the state of Oklahoma. We've been recognized by both legislatures in Oklahoma, Texas, for the work we do nationally by President Bush Sr., who passed away now, also by the Oklahoma legislatures with the 2016 and 2018 Human Rights Award, before and after the passing of my twin brother, for the work we do promoting global citizenship in classrooms all across the United States. And just recently, a national language organization now partners with us to allow for professional development of language educators across the United States, called the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages. And last year in 2020, I was elected to the National Council of the United Nations Association of the United States, which is where I met Amanda, and Amanda serves as our Global Goals Ambassador. So at that organization, I chair the Global Engagement Summit Committee. So it helps, what we do there is put together the largest gathering of Americans who support the work of the United Nations at the UN headquarters. This year, unfortunately, it was not at the UN headquarters, but it was there through a hybrid model, not even a hybrid, sorry, through a completely virtual summit that felt like you were at the UN, but you could enjoy it from the leisure of your home. And we had a record 5,000 people participation. And that summit also marked the United States official re-entry into the Paris Agreement. So ever since, we've received lots of recognition for the work. Was named to the International Literacy Association's 30 Under 30 this year, named as the Teacher of the Year in Texas, also named to the Dallas Business Journal's 40 Under 40 just 2 weeks ago. So this is our contact information. And then I want to just spend the next few minutes talking to you guys about how some of the SDGs, which I'm going to share my screen in a little bit, tied into some of the calls that we facilitate, and how can you guys be part of this movement? How can we help you connect your schools and your communities with some of our volunteers? Or how can we get some of your expertise for a few minutes of your free time during the school year to help children in other countries? So that's my email and that's my cell phone. So if you add a +1, that's my WhatsApp number for folks who are in other countries, if you want to reach out to me. So, or if you're an educator and you want to do this, you can reach out to me directly there, or you can DM our nonprofit handles. So you can directly send us a direct message on Instagram or Twitter. Instagram is our most popular handle, where we directly respond to the teachers and we instantly connect teachers with people from other countries wherever they want us to connect them with, or also Facebook. Twitter is also something we use, but a lot of teachers around the globe do not have Twitter. So these two handles are usually more popular than Twitter. And those are my personal handles for anybody who may need some of this information. But I'm going to stop there and I'm going to share my screen so you can see the 17 SDGs and the link that I posted in the chat. So here we go. Let's look at the chat. I've seen the chat. Okay. Any questions, Amanda, in the chat so far?
Not yet, but everyone, please feel free to post your questions in the chat, and there might even be time to raise your hand and speak your question out loud. So just start thinking of your questions.
We have time, right, Amanda?
Yes, we have time.
Okay, perfect. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And now we're going to talk about a couple of these experiences. So I want you to you to talk about this. So here we go. I'm going to pull up that link, the global goals. Here we go. And I want you to think about a couple of the experiences that I shared. So let's talk about the CEO of community recycling. When you saw that experience where students got to put in their own gently used clothes and send it to a person who recycles them and sends them to different countries. What SDG do you think we tried to accomplish? Anybody?
Hello, Akash. Can you hear me?
Yes, Marcela, good morning.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, well, a lovely talk. I think that when you were doing this, you were working towards global goal number 1. Anyway, I just think that all these goals are interrelated. So you were also working on others at the same time, right? Maybe you were working a little bit into reduced inequalities, number 10, right? Also a little bit in, let's say, gender equality, trying to make all ourselves equal. That's number 5. So I think that you were by covering one, you were also working on others.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point of these calls. That's it. So interdisciplinary. When you talk about disciplines that I taught, I was not just teaching them about, hey, look at all these countries this guy is impacting. So that is economics. You could teach also about the math. If you talk about the impact in terms of numbers, you could talk about economics. You could talk about civics, which is action civics. You're giving back to the community. You could talk about social studies, because here you're talking about geography and social studies and history of the countries where the clothes that the students sent are going to Sudan and Philippines. Then you can talk about the demographics of these countries. So like Marcela said, you can teach multiple disciplines, but you can also hit multiple SDGs with one call.
Yeah. Also, number 17, global partnerships, working all together for the same goal. That's right.
Global partnerships. Now let's talk about the kids in the Kiribati Islands, the tiny atolls in the Pacific Ocean that are being flooded because of global climate change. Let's imagine Marcela, who is an English teacher, and Noemi, both of them who are English professor, English teacher from Argentina. Both are incredible educators. And I especially want to give a shout out to Noemi. Noemi, if you're still here, Noemi and I met last year in, just like I'm meeting right now, Amanda or Ficayo and Emmanuel and the rest of you here, Noemi and I met at a conference, and you wouldn't believe this. Noemi was so excited after what she saw, she drove hundreds of her university students. Ever since we met, I think, I don't know, Noemi, when did we meet? Maybe March, April of summer of last year, June, around June-ish.
After July, I think it was, because it was after the Congress, the International Congress in Tucumán.
Yes, International Congress in Tucumán. And you wouldn't believe it. One teacher, you have to hear the story. One lady, one teacher, hundreds of her students. Since July of last year, we have facilitated over 500 calls of students from Argentina helping kids all around the globe learn about their country. So this is one teacher and her students. And also Marcela. Marcela, I just got to meet her 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, right, Marcela? And Marcela has already connected her students with people from Pakistan, from India, from the United States. So very driven educators. So
yeah, absolutely wonderful experiences with you, Akash, wonderful experiences.
And it's, again, it's all about what you do with this, you know. You can hear this and be like, wow, this is so great, and then forget about it tomorrow. But I want to give you an example of what people are doing after they hear something like this, like Noemi and Marcela, and I think Gonca is also here from Turkey. If she is here, Gonca is here. Oh, Gonca is here. So Gonca is another amazing story. Gonca is one of the co-founders of a nonprofit group, the Global Teachers Club. And Gonca and I met in Turkey. And Gonca, this was what, 4 years ago? I don't remember, 3 or 4 years ago. This lady is amazing. She is impressive in the way she connects people now. But just when I met her in person, I went and spoke at a conference in Turkey, and Gonka was there, and she invited me to come speak to her high school students. And I still am in touch with hundreds of her high school students on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. But ever since I was there, she has not, I have not seen one day, 1 month when she has not connected her students from somebody from Asia, somebody from Africa, somebody from Latin America, from all over the globe. She's very driven teacher. And now this year, she even founded her own Global Teachers Club where she connects hundreds of teachers across the globe. And I think Marcela is also one of the members of that club, where their teachers are connecting with other teachers for the same purpose, the same mission of spreading the SDGs and championing the SDGs in their schools and communities. Gonka, do you want to say something?
I'm thankful. You are my inspiration. If I hadn't met you, I could never do anything I do now. I'm really thankful for meeting you and for encouraging me for everything you do for me. You always support me, and we started with you. You remember? I think we started. There was no pandemic. There was no Zoom at that time, and we started with you with Skype sessions, and you connected me with my students, and then you found some other people from other countries as well. So my story began like that with you. And now I'm really happy. And 2 days ago, a biology teacher from my school offered me to run a project together with him, SDG goals, and we are trying to find what we can do, because it is important to interdiscipline in project, in even in projects. And I'm trying to find what can I do with a biology teacher, and I'm really happy to be part of your community, and I'm really proud to be your friend. And Marcela is a really nice person, and I'm really grateful I have met her on my way, and I'm sure we are going to make a lot of successful things with our students. And we want to run project with our SDG project. We met a few times before. I hope we can do some great things like you, Akash. Thank you, everything, for everything.
No, my pleasure. I'm so happy to see three of amazing educators, two from Argentina and one from Turkey. They inspire me every day through the work they do in their classrooms, because it's so beautiful to see the joyful faces of the kids. I see always the kids smiling. They're like, that means they had a great time in that classroom. So that shows you that the teachers have put in such an incredible amount of hard work and passion into the work that they do. And a lot of times, as I said, any of these teachers, none of them do it for the money. They're working after hours, late in the night, and like sometimes 1 or 2 in the morning. So great work. Thank you. And I think I see some hands raised. So I want to make sure I give them opportunities to ask questions.
Yes, Oyagoga, do you want to go ahead, and then Milton after that?
Hello, everyone. Hello, Mr. Akash. I so much enjoyed your presentation so far. And I think something that interested me the most was that statement that you don't have to be wealthy to make an impact at a global scale. And I think that is a very big challenge in my part of the world here, where many people think you need the finance before you could really make an impact in the immediate locality and across the world. So I really picked that point. And I think I also agree with you, because I have a philosophy too of teaching, which is to have love and respect for any engagement. Love and respect for any engagement, because these are the key values that can really push any individual, especially learners, to be engaged in whatever they do, just like you have just documented from your presentation. And it shows me that you are indeed a global citizen, in the right word definition for a global citizen. You are indeed one. And if I'm to rate you, maybe on a scale of 5, I'll give you 5. From what I've just seen, from the presentation you have done, you are indeed a global citizen. So in that perspective, please, Mr. Akash, I would like from your exposure, your global reach, I would like to hear Mr. Akash's definition of distance education, considering how the world has now become like a stone throw.
Mm.
With localities is like a stone throw now from digital pervasiveness. How will Mr. Akash, in his own personal words, define distance education, considering the scenario of the SDGs? And I would love to hear your.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for your comments. And that particular
Yes,
comment
sir.
about you don't have to be rich to make a difference in someone's life is close to my heart, because I've spent my teaching career teaching in extremely poor communities of Oklahoma City and Dallas. Even though people associate the United States with being a wealthy nation, if you come down to some of our inner cities and you see some of the situations some of our kids live in, like some live in foster care homes, some are parts of gangs, and some live with their grandparents, some live in the streets. So it's not as good and rosy and happy that it sometimes looks to people in other parts of the globe. Yes, there are parts of the country that are extremely wealthy. So yes, that is very, very close to my heart, because our kids have to be shown that, hey, yes, you don't have to have the finances to make a difference in someone's life. Now, to address your question about distance learning, before COVID, I would have teachers, I would give the same talk to teachers, and the teacher would raise their hand and the teacher would say, Mr. Patel, I'm not tech savvy like you. So now I have teachers. Let's have teachers in front of me. Can Marcella tell me that I'm not tech savvy after COVID-19? All teachers know how to use Zoom. All teachers know how to use maybe Microsoft Teams or Google Meets. So the teacher cannot complain anymore that I don't know how to use technology. So distance learning today has got to be the distance learning of collaborative learning, of learning with, from and with people from other countries. And that is our future. That is, we've always been an interconnected planet. And how do we bring these experiences to the classroom should be what should drive every educator. Like Gonka said, she's working with a biology teacher. Hello, even a biology teacher can help bring the world to her classroom by connecting with, you have lots of SDGs that connect with biology. Life on Earth, you've got climate action, you've got SDGs that connect with biology, where you can talk to them about climate change. You can talk to them about animals, about wildlife, and about the cultures of these countries. And as Marcella pointed, it is all interdisciplinary. You're not just trying to teach biology. Through biology, you're helping build up the English communication skills of your students in Turkey when they talk to a biologist from the United States, or maybe when they talk to a biologist from Australia, from the United Kingdom, from other parts of the globe. So learning, the distance learning that I see as in the future, or the learning that I see even happening in the classroom when schools open back up, should be one of collaboration, of global collaboration. There should be no excuse for any educator today to be like, oh, I don't know how to do any of the things that Mr. Patel does, or Ms. Gonka does, or Ms. Noemi does, or Ms. Marcella does. It's easy. It's as easy as adding Amanda on my contact list on my phone and calling her on Skype, or calling her on Zoom or Microsoft Teams and be like, Amanda, you're a Global Goals Ambassador. Would you mind talking to my high school students about the global goal that you're working with, and what can we as a classroom do to work towards that global goal? Amanda's like, I'm busy this week, but next week for 15 minutes, I can join your class. Hey, that's a win for your students, for your community. You've already inspired them to take action for quality education. So those are the kinds of partnership. Even today in this call, if you don't end up contacting me or our nonprofit, if you can get the contact information of one of your colleagues that I see here, look at how diverse and beautiful this room is. So if Marcella can contact Gonka, or Marcella can contact Kanan, or Marcella can contact Marti, and they can connect with each other and find a way to bring that experience to the classroom, that's a big win for you today. You spent an hour very well today in this room by connecting with somebody. And that's what I want you to do over the next few minutes. Don't just connect with me, connect with the people in this room. Look at how beautifully and well they could diversify your learning experiences.
Thank you very much. I think that was a passionate definition of distance education as we should view it together, as we should view it. And I like that. I think from our experience so far, I've got infected from your passion. And I think I got some tidbits which I've jotted down here that's called fine-tune the approach I use as an educator, because you've presented it in a capsule that I think I can fine tune mine, and that's the impact. In fact, that's what distance education should have as a goal. That is to share progressive experiences that has been tried somewhere else, and then the challenge now will be channeling it into one's own local context and see how the world can be brought closer into the picture. You see, and I think humanity, for humanity's sake, for which the climate is already indicating, we need that collaboration, just like you rightly expressed. So thank you very much for the privilege you have given us today to learn and benefit from your own experiences.
My pleasure. Thank you. And I know Milton had a question before Marcela and Sharif.
Buenos dias, Akash, and good morning to everybody else. I am a Bolivian teacher, and I'm teaching in the United States in North Carolina. I teach in a small town called Dallas, North Carolina, by coincidence. And I'd like to congratulate you first for your a lifetime of fully experienced, activities, and you have basically answered my question answering Oyagoga. And, I completely agree with everything you have said. I have already made a few connections among the participants here. It's been a great journey to be a global schools advocate, coming from a small country and joining this global community. One thing I would like you to comment on is, how do you find a way to, convince sometimes the district authorities and even students that believe that the only way to go about education is testing? Because, it doesn't matter how incredible our activities are. Many people say you have to translate that into testing for a grade. So how do we go about that? Do you have any experiences?
Sure, Milton. Thank you so much. I taught in both the heavily tested districts. So I taught fourth grade. So, it's a state mandated exam grade where they have to take multiple exams. And during the same year, my students connected with people from over 75 countries in 1 year. They're talking to people from all over the globe. So my principal comes in and he's like, Mr. Patel, how does this tie into testing? I'm like, how does this not tie into testing? So just like I answered a few minutes ago, when I connect my students to teach them about elephants, I'm teaching them science. I taught them an experiment. I showed my principal, look, I'm doing the DNA mapping of elephants. This is not even required in fourth grade. My fourth graders can map the DNA of elephants. This is something that even high school students don't know how to do. So you think about the standards. Like, hey, when I created that project and sent the clothes and the shoes back to DC, to community recycling, the CEO of community recycling, and he sent it to other countries, that, just the idea that, hey, my students have a sense of belonging, they find joy in my classroom, and they go around the school telling everybody about what they just did, or hey, today they learned from somebody from Indonesia, somebody from Turkey, somebody from Afghanistan, from India. That itself for me is a big success. I don't care if they go up or down on the testing scale. Of course, yes, it has to translate to testing. So I tied in all of these experiences to my standards. For example, fourth grade, if I'm doing a mystery hangout with Milton, who's from Bolivia, I came up with a list of 25 to 30 questions that the students asked in target language, in English and Spanish, because it was a bilingual classroom. So the students would get up and ask Milton, ¿qué tipo de comida comen en tu país? o si tu país queda norte o sur de la línea ecuatorial, or what are the different, what's the type of government in your country? That ties into history. The types of food, there's so many questions that lead to so many different answers that tie into different standards in the 4th grade. Even though I was teaching just reading, they're learning about history, geography, that the geography teacher is supposed to teach, but I'm already teaching them that in my classroom. Or I'm teaching math out of a lesson from elephants, where they're calculating the amount of paper, the amount of elephant poo-poo paper they could create from one elephant a day, after that elephant eats about 500 pounds of grass a day. So translate all of these experiences into problems or into questions that tie into your standards. Now that is a teacher's job. That was not pre-made for me. I had to create all of this, whether it's the science experiment, whether it's connecting it to social studies or to reading. That's a lot of work. But hey, I was willing to do that work, because look at it. Like when I did all that work, I could create it into a nonprofit that now is being used by people across the United States. So people can use it, and it's credible. It's being recognized by people from other countries. I've been invited to speak where I've been paid honorariums. Like next month, I'll speak at Stanford University. So I didn't even go to Stanford. I didn't go to Harvard. I went to a small school, and I'm going to be speaking at Stanford University. So for me, that's an honor, Milton. So I think you have to be, as educators, our administrators will always come back and be like, show me the grades, show me the grades, show me the grades. But education is not just about the grades. It is about the impact we make in the lives of these kids. And that impact resonates across the school, where what you do, it throws so much light around the school. And not just light around the school, Milton. Even when I had not founded the nonprofit, our school was already in the news. Just in the first year I was doing this, connecting my students, I was a multicultural teacher of the year for the state of Oklahoma. I was January 2014 educator of the month for the State Department of Education. So that was my first year of teaching, Milton. Big gains. My principal loved it, even though the scores were not the best, but they were somewhere satisfactory. He loved it because it was great PR for his school, for the community. And going back, I don't ever regret. I tried my best, because I know I tried my best. If I didn't have the best scores in the city or the state, it doesn't matter. I still have the most well-rounded global citizens going out in the community, and that's what matters for me.
Thank you. Keep inspiring.
And Sharif, one more question, I think, Amanda, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think Marcella had her hand raised, as well as Sheriff had his hand raised.
Hello. Yes, Amanda. It was not a question. I just wanted to add something to what you were saying, Akash, because I think it's essential. You were talking about this idea of working collaboratively, and of course it's like that. But I just wanted to add that we have to make our students understand that it's not necessary to travel to be able to work with these SDGs, with the Sustainable Development Goals. There is so much to do locally in each country, to be able to help all around the world. And by working locally, we will be helping our world globally. Right, so that is what we have to insist on so much, right? Because we are in different parts of the world. We all speak different languages. We all have different realities, very different realities. But we can all give a hand to these SDGs by working locally, and then getting, together. And as we did with Goncha some time ago, and to start sharing what we do in each part of the world, and telling you about my reality and what I am doing to help that reality, and you telling me what you are doing there. When you contacted me with this person in Pakistan, it was a really opening their eyes for my students, because they are such different realities in connection with religion, in connection with customs, in connection with ways of dealing with daily life. And it was fascinating. My students were like, oh, I can't believe it. Yeah. And that for me, as you said a few minutes ago, Akash, that's great. Yeah, to inspire them in that way, to give them some light in that way. It was really fascinating. So I'm really thankful for that.
Let's take the final question from Sheriff because he's had his hands raised. I know we're a little bit over time, and then we'll close up.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
Okay. Good afternoon, Mr. Akash. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, in fact, I want to give those to you, I mean, for the efforts you have been making, not just in your country, but throughout the world. In fact, I can tell you that I've actually gained a lot from, I mean, your presentation so far, and likewise from, I mean, other advocates on the court this afternoon. But I'm particularly interested, I mean, in one of your presentations where you talk about, I mean, interlanguage, I mean, the effort you made that actually gives the opportunity, I mean, the student opportunity, I mean, to learn other language. But taking that to my own country, I'm an economics teacher in Lagos State, I mean, teaching an underserved community that is very close to border, and where the income of people, I mean, is very, very low. What I try to say is that even most students, they cannot actually afford, I mean, to use Android phone. I'm interested I mean, in interlanguage to prepare students, I mean, to learn other language apart from their indigenous language and English. So what advice can you give in that regard, I mean, to make it easier for the students?
So I think I heard, Amanda, that they don't have access even to an Android phone, like a smartphone. Is that what the challenges are, that they don't have access to technology as well as probably kids in the United States? Is that right, Sharif?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. We've even worked in some very rural communities. To just give you an example, like where I met not Marcela, but Noemi last year at the Congreso in Tucumán. So Argentina, where I spoke last year to like almost 40,000 educators. And there were educators from the mountains and the mountainous regions of Argentina, where folks don't have access to a smartphone, like you said, like an Android. Like here, you're sharing a story with me from Africa. But these are kids from South America where they didn't have access. But I really loved what the educator did. She said that this should not stop me from reaching my kids. She used the radio. You wouldn't believe this. She invited our speakers on the radio, and our speakers went on radio to speak, and she telecasted to her entire mountainous community. The other thing she used, which really inspired me, I was like, wow, this is incredible. I'm in the United States. I've got all the technology. This woman went above and beyond. She invites a speaker every month from a different part of the world on her radio show, and then she transmits it to people all across her mountainous region. The second thing she did is she used WhatsApp, because she said, we don't have high-speed internet to realize a video call with somebody from another country, and high-speed internet is also expensive in my country. She used WhatsApp. She said a lot of, and a lot of carriers in our country give us unlimited access to WhatsApp. So through WhatsApp, she would have the volunteers record short videos, and that would go to the telephones of the parents. And the parents would share the lesson, and she had created activities where students would fill out that paper and send it back to the school during the pandemic. So teachers, I know we have gone through lots of issues, challenges during the pandemic, but teachers like this teacher from Argentina give me hope every single day, that even though they don't have the resources, this woman went above and beyond to use WhatsApp, to use radio to get to her students. So we just have to get creative. I know, we can complain sometimes, and I understand. I totally understand the reason why we can complain, because the situation is just so bad. The circumstances are so bad. But even in those circumstances, stories like this, teachers, will continuously give you inspiration and hope to keep going.
Well, thank you so much, Akash, for being here today and for sharing with us. I think I speak for everyone when I say that this was an extremely inspiring presentation. We learned a lot from you, just the importance of instilling empathy in our students, the importance of making them true global citizens. And we're all working together to do this type of education. So any way we can engage with your network, we'll be sure to share information with our advocates, and we can cross-collaborate, and we'll be sharing the recording with the rest of them so they have your contact information on that slide. So I just want to say thank you so much for joining us.
Amanda, thank you so much to everybody. I just feel like I'm speaking to the United Nations because look at this, how diverse and incredibly exciting group of people this is. So would you mind if we take a picture, a screenshot?
I don't mind. Are you going to take it or would you like me to take it?
I'll take it. And you can take it too, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, we'll both take it then. So
so for those of you who can turn your cameras on, please turn your cameras on. We're going to take the picture at the count of 3. Does that sound good?
Yes.
Everybody? 3, 2, and awesome. I think Amanda, you took one too, right?
Yes, I did. So we'll also circulate that. But we can also exchange photos later after the call. So
we'll take one more because I think I see a couple people that joined later. So ready, 3. All right, a couple people just joined. So we'll take it again. 3, 2, and awesome.
Okay, great. So thank you to everyone on this call. We'll be sharing the recording internally for the Global Schools Advocates, and Akash, I'll also share it with you if you want to disseminate it to your network. It was a great morning or afternoon or evening with everyone, wherever you are. So stay tuned for the information on the next webinar. And just a reminder to our advocates that are on the call, the KPI form is due tomorrow. So please remember to submit information about your monthly activities so we can keep tracking our progress together. So bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Akash. Bye, Amanda. Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.
Bye, Marty. It's so good to see you. It's always nice to have you join us on the live calls.
Thank you.
Sorry, Amanda, but where can I get to you? Is there, I mean, I just have to, I've already got, that is to say, the form to belong to the global schools. I'm planning to put my name into it this afternoon. Shall I get to you? Okay, there, thank you. Thank you. I've already, okay.
I just shared my email, so you'll be able to
connect
with me that way.
Thank you very much. I'll be sending you an email right now. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you, Amanda.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.